When the human princess took the front line, hope returned. Entire civilizations vanished in the blink of an eye, leaving nothing but shattered cities and broken hope. On the planet Erendor, the situation was grim. The once bustling cities now echoed with silence, and the forests and mountains seemed to mourn the loss of life. Those humans who remained had retreated into hidden enclaves, living in fear of discovery. The sky, once bright with the lights of commerce and travel, was now patrolled by Zarkath warships that cast long, dark shadows over the land. Among the survivors was Princess Lyra. She had grown up in the palace, shielded from the horrors outside by walls that now seemed more like prison bars than protection. Her childhood had been filled with lessons about diplomacy, history, and leadership, but she had learned more about fear than hope. The Council of Elders, who had survived the initial attacks, had taken control of the remaining human forces. Their decisions were cautious, defensive, and above all, afraid. Lyra had watched as every attempt to resist the Zarkath had been shut down before it began. The people had given up hope, and even the thought of rebellion seemed like a distant memory. But Lyra could not accept this. The blood of her ancestors ran through her veins, ancestors who had fought impossible odds to protect humanity. Stories of their courage were etched into every hall of the palace. She remembered one story in particular about her great-grandmother, a warrior who had led a handful of soldiers to victory against a force 10 times their size. Lyra often wondered if that kind of courage still existed, if humans could rise again. She knew that fear could paralyze a people, but hope could ignite a fire strong enough to change the course of history. One evening, while the sun dipped behind the jagged mountains that had once been lush with greenery, Lyra slipped out of the palace. She moved quietly through the shadows, careful to avoid the patrols that the council had stationed to watch over the city. Her destination was a small landing bay on the edge of the capital, where a few scouts and their small ships waited. These scouts were the eyes and ears of Erendor, daring souls who risked everything to gather information about the Zarkath. They were careful, but even they carried stories of fear and despair, tales of planets lost and families destroyed. Yet Lyra believed they might carry something more, an opportunity. The scouts were waiting for her. Their leader, a man named Jerk, was weathered and cautious, his face lined with worry and fatigue. When he saw Lyra, he straightened, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. He had expected her to be confined to the palace, as the council insisted. But here she was, standing among people who had already chosen to live in the shadows of fear. "Princess," Jerk said quietly, "it is dangerous for you to be here." Lyra met his gaze with a steadiness that surprised even herself. "I am not here to hide," she replied. "I am here because I cannot stand by while humans suffer. We have a chance, do we not?" Jerk hesitated. He had seen many chances come and go, many opportunities wasted by hesitation and fear. But there was something in Lyra's voice, a spark that he had not heard in years. "There is a supply line," he said finally. "The Zarkath have left it lightly guarded. If we strike now, we can cut their resources and save many lives. But it is dangerous, outnumbered, outgunned, any misstep, and it will be the end of us." Lyra nodded. "I know the risks. But we cannot wait for safety. Safety is gone. All that remains is action." The scouts exchanged nervous glances. They had grown used to despair, to waiting for the inevitable. But Lyra's presence, her courage, shifted something inside them. If she could stand here, willing to risk everything, maybe they could too. Preparations began immediately. Lyra walked among the ships, inspecting every panel, every weapon, learning the strengths and weaknesses of the crew. She had never piloted a battlecraft before, but she had studied their designs extensively. She absorbed everything she could, asking questions and making suggestions. The scouts were initially hesitant to take direction from a young princess, but as they listened, they realized her understanding was precise and her judgment sharp. As night fell, the human fleet, small, battered, but determined, set course for the Zarkath supply route. Stars streaked past as they navigated through asteroid belts and debris fields, taking every precaution to avoid detection. Lyra stood on the bridge of the lead frigate, her eyes scanning the vast emptiness of space. She could feel the weight of expectation on her shoulders, the lives of her people resting on her decisions. But fear did not grip her. Instead, a strange calm filled her, a certainty that she was meant to lead this fight. Hours passed in tense silence. Then distant lights flickered on the sensors, Zarkath patrol ships guarding the supply line. Lyra's heart pounded, but she did not waver. She issued orders with clarity and precision, directing her small fleet to approach under the cover of an asteroid field. The Zarkath ships, confident in their superiority, did not suspect the humans would dare attack. When the moment came, it was swift and decisive. Human ships darted from the shadows, striking supply transports with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions illuminated the darkness, fiery blossoms against the black void of space. The Zarkath responded with violence, but they were unprepared for the audacity of the attack. Lyra led the charge, weaving her ship through the enemy formation with daring maneuvers that left her crew in awe. Each strike was precise, each decision deliberate. The battle raged for hours, and the human fleet suffered losses. Ships were damaged, some destroyed, and brave lives were lost. But the Zarkath supply line was shattered. Cargo vessels exploded, leaving wreckage drifting among the stars. Prisoners were freed from transport ships, and resources that would have gone to fuel the Empire's conquest were now in human hands. The success was a beacon, small but significant, in the darkness that had surrounded Urindor for so long. After the battle, the fleet returned to Urindor. Lyra walked among her people, speaking to those who had fought and those who had watched from hidden shelters. She did not claim victory for herself alone. She spoke of courage, of unity, of the strength that humans carried within them. For the first time in years, smiles returned, hesitant and fragile but real. Yet even in this moment of triumph, Lyra knew the fight was far from over. The Zarkath would not ignore this challenge. Their empire was vast, their fleets countless, and their patience long. But Lyra had seen what humans could do when hope guided their actions. She had seen her people rise, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And she understood something that the Council of Elders had forgotten. Courage was contagious. That night, as the stars shone over Urindor, Lyra stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city that had survived against all odds. Fires still burned in the streets, and the scars of battle were visible everywhere, but there was life, and there was hope. She clenched her fists, feeling the weight of her responsibility, and whispered a vow to the stars above. "I will not let fear rule us. I will lead and we will rise. We are human and we do not surrender." Her words carried far beyond the palace walls. Among the people hiding in the shadows, listening for any sign of resistance, a spark of courage ignited. They began to whisper to one another, sharing the tale of the princess who had dared to strike the first blow. In the quiet of the night, hope returned, fragile but unstoppable. The Council of Elders, once fearful and hesitant, could not ignore the change. Messages arrived from hidden human enclaves, reports of people preparing to fight, of small victories inspired by Lyra's boldness. The princess had become more than a figurehead. She had become a symbol, a living reminder that humanity's strength lay not in technology or numbers, but in courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive. Lyra knew the road ahead would be perilous. The Zarkath Empire was vast, and their response would be swift and merciless. But she also knew that the spark she had ignited could grow into a fire capable of consuming fear itself. Humans were not easily broken, and when led with courage, they could accomplish the impossible. As dawn broke over the jagged peaks of Urindor, Lyra prepared for what was to come. She would not wait for orders, she would not cower behind walls. The fight for humanity's survival had begun, and she would lead it from the front. Her people were watching, their hope rekindled, and she would not fail them. For the first time in years, the stars did not feel like a distant, cold expanse. They felt alive with possibility. And somewhere deep within her, Lyra knew that the story of humanity's resistance was just beginning. The victory against the Zarkath supply line had breathed life back into humanity on Urindor, but Lyra knew that it was only the beginning. The Zarkath were relentless, and they would soon respond to this audacious attack with overwhelming force. The human fleet, though brave, was still small, battered, and outmatched. Every surviving ship needed repair, every soldier needed rest, and every human heart needed courage that went beyond simple hope. Lyra moved through the bustling docks of Urindor, inspecting the repairs to her flagship. Engineers worked tirelessly, sparks flying from welding torches, hull plates being replaced, and weapons being recalibrated. She walked among them, asking questions, learning about the limits of their craft, and giving encouragement where morale wavered. Her presence had a strange effect. People who were weary from weeks of hiding and despair felt a renewed determination to fight. Children peeked from behind crates to see her, wide-eyed, believing that maybe humans could rise again. "Princess," Jerk said, approaching her with urgency, "we've received reports from the scouts near the outer sectors. There's a massive Zarkath fleet moving toward Urindor. They're larger than anything we've seen before, and they're not just coming for the supply lines, they're coming for the planet itself." Lyra's gaze hardened. She had expected nothing less. The Zarkath would not let this attack go unanswered. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 3 standard cycles," Jerk replied. "If we don't act quickly, our cities could fall before we even have a chance to defend them." Lyra considered the situation. Hiding, retreating, waiting for the inevitable, these were not options for her. She thought of her people, terrified and cowering in the shadows, and she made a decision. "We strike first," she said firmly. "We cannot wait for them to crush us. We will disrupt their fleet before it reaches Urindor, even if it costs us dearly. Every victory counts, no matter how small." The human fleet prepared for battle. Despite being smaller and less advanced, they had one advantage. They knew their home territory better than the Zarkath. Lyra studied the navigation maps, plotting courses through asteroid fields, debris clusters, and gravitational anomalies. The humans could use the terrain to their advantage, striking from shadows where the Zarkath sensors might not detect them. As the fleet approached the outer sectors, Lyra held a briefing with her captains. "We cannot match them ship for ship," she said. "But we can match them in strategy, in courage, and in unpredictability. Use every advantage the terrain gives us. Strike where they are weak, retreat when necessary, and never give them the satisfaction of underestimating us." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Humans were not machines. They were creatures of creativity, emotion, and instinct. Lyra trusted that these traits, when combined with daring and ingenuity, could turn the tide against even the most formidable foe. The first Zarkath patrols appeared on the sensors. Massive ships, sleek and menacing, moved in formation, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Lyra's heart pounded, but she remained calm. "Steady," she ordered. "Let them come closer. Wait for the perfect moment to strike." Then, with sudden precision, the human ships darted from the shadows. They targeted supply vessels first, crippling them before the larger Zarkath warships could react. Explosions lit the void of space as human ingenuity and courage collided with alien technology. Lyra led the charge in her strike craft, maneuvering through the enemy formation with breathtaking skill. She twisted and banked her ship around debris and asteroid clusters, making her a difficult target. Every shot she fired was deliberate, every move calculated to maximize impact while minimizing risk. Despite their courage, the humans were not invincible. A Zarkath destroyer opened fire on one of the human frigates, tearing through its hull. Crew members scrambled to contain the damage, and Lyra's heart ached at the sight, but she did not falter. "Focus on the weak points," she shouted. "We can take them down if we work together." Her words rallied the fleet. Humans who had been trained for years in retreat and defense now fought with a ferocity born of hope and desperation. Each attack was coordinated, each maneuver executed with precision. The Zarkath, though surprised, quickly adapted, sending a squadron to flank the human forces. Lyra realized that brute force alone would not win this battle. She needed a plan that used both strategy and courage. Scanning the fleet, she noticed a pattern. The Zarkath formations were rigid, predictable, and confident. They assumed humans would fight cautiously. That assumption would be their undoing. She made a decision. "We split," she commanded. "Half of the fleet will create a diversion, the rest will strike at the core of their formation." The captains hesitated. Dividing their forces against a superior enemy was dangerous, but Lyra's confidence was contagious. They obeyed. The diversion fleet drew Zarkath fire, weaving through the battlefield with daring maneuvers. Meanwhile, Lyra led the main strike team directly toward the heart of the enemy formation. Energy beams streaked past, shields flared, and explosions erupted in the void. Lyra's ship twisted and turned, narrowly avoiding destruction at every moment. She felt the thrill of battle, but it was tempered by the weight of responsibility. Every life lost mattered, every decision could change the fate of Urindor. In the midst of battle, Lyra's sensors detected a massive Zarkath transport ship. It was carrying prisoners and supplies crucial to the Empire's war effort. A strike against it could cripple the Zarkath further. "Target the transport," she ordered. Her crew hesitated, knowing the ship was heavily guarded. We can do this. We have to do this for our people. With coordinated precision, the humans struck. Missiles and energy beams tore through the transport's defenses. Lyra guided her craft close enough to ensure accuracy, but far enough to avoid destruction. Finally, with one final blast, the transport erupted in a controlled explosion, freeing prisoners into escape pods and scattering supplies that the Zarkath could no longer reclaim. The battle was far from over. Zarkath warships regrouped and focused their fire on Lyra's fleet. Damage reports poured in, ships disabled, engines failing, crews injured. The situation was dire, but the humans pressed on, refusing to yield. Lyra's leadership was the glue holding them together. Her courage inspired every pilot, every soldier, every human watching from hidden shelters on Erendor. Hours passed, and exhaustion threatened to overtake the humans. But then, a discovery gave Lyra a new edge. Deep in the asteroid belt near Erendor, she found an ancient facility built by humans generations ago, a prototype energy cannon designed to exploit alien vulnerabilities. It had never been used, considered too dangerous for standard warfare. But in this moment, Lyra saw its potential. "This is our chance," she told Jerk over comms. "If we can activate this cannon, we can turn the tide, but it requires someone to lead the charge from the front line." The crew looked at her, fear and doubt in their eyes. "You want us to risk everything?" one of the captains asked. Lyra's gaze was steady. "I will lead," she said simply. "If humanity is going to survive, we cannot rely on caution alone. We must act boldly. We must show the Zarkath that we are not afraid." Preparations began immediately. The human fleet adjusted their formation to provide cover for Lyra's strike craft as it navigated toward the ancient facility. The energy cannon lay dormant, a relic of human ingenuity, waiting for someone brave enough to bring it to life. Lyra felt a mixture of fear and determination. She was aware that failure could mean death, not just for herself, but for the entire fleet. Yet she also understood that courage often required risk. As the fleet approached the facility, Zarkath ships closed in, sensing the humans' intentions. Lyra's ship darted between asteroids, avoiding detection as much as possible. She coordinated with the fleet to draw enemy fire away from the path to the cannon. Each maneuver was tense, each decision critical. The human pilots relied on instinct and training, guided by Lyra's calm and precise commands. Finally, Lyra's craft reached the facility. Docking was risky, the cannon's systems were ancient and unstable. She carefully aligned her ship, bypassing failing systems and activating the energy core. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the cannon roared to life. From the bridge of the flagship, Lyra saw the effect immediately. The energy beam sliced through the void, striking Zarkath ships with devastating precision. One by one, enemy vessels were disabled, their formations thrown into chaos. The human fleet seized the opportunity, striking with renewed vigor and courage. The tide of battle began to turn. Even in victory, Lyra remained vigilant. She knew the Zarkath would not give up easily and more challenges lay ahead. But for now, humanity had won a critical victory. Supplies were disrupted, prisoners freed, and the morale of Erendor's population soared. Lyra had not only led her fleet to success, she had reminded humans that bravery, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the greatest odds. As the battle ended and the surviving human ships regrouped, Lyra looked to the stars with determination. The Zarkath were still a threat, but humans had shown that they could fight back and they could win. Hope was no longer a distant dream. It was alive, burning brightly in the hearts of every human who had witnessed the courage of their princess. Lyra knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would return, stronger and angrier. But so would humanity, guided by courage, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit that had defined them for generations. The fight for survival was far from over, but for the first time in years, the people of Erendor believed that victory, though distant, was possible. And at the center of it all was Princess Lyra, standing on the bridge of her battered but victorious ship, ready to face whatever the universe dared to throw at her next. The aftermath of the battle left the human fleet battered but alive. Zarkath ships drifted in the void, damaged and disorganized, yet the Empire's response was only a matter of time. Lyra knew the victory had been significant, but it had also revealed humanity's defiance to the galaxy. The Zarkath would return with greater force, and this time the stakes were higher. Lyra stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring at the stars. Each speck of light reminded her of the countless worlds under Zarkath control, of the innocents suffering far from Erendor. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders, heavier than any armor or weapon could bear. But fear did not grip her, determination did. Humanity had shown it could resist. Now it was time to strike even deeper. Jerk approached, his expression tense. Princess, scouts report a massive fleet assembling near the outer rim. They're moving in a coordinated strike, and it's clear they're targeting us specifically. This is no longer just a battle, they're coming to crush us. Lyra nodded. She had anticipated this. We will be ready. Prepare the fleet for another engagement. We cannot wait for them to attack us in the open. We must take the fight to them wherever they are weakest. The humans began intensive preparations. Ships were repaired, weapons recalibrated, and shields reinforced. Every pilot trained relentlessly, studying tactics and learning to anticipate the enemy's movements. Civilians helped where they could, loading supplies, repairing damaged systems, and assisting medics. The entire planet felt the urgency, and yet the unity of purpose brought a strength humans had not felt in generations. Lyra called a council with her captains. The Zarkath are organized, predictable, and arrogant, she said. They believe their superiority is absolute. But they do not understand human unpredictability, our creativity, or our willingness to fight even when the odds are against us. We will exploit that. Her plan was bold, dangerous, and fraught with risk. She would lead a direct assault on the Zarkath fleet, drawing their attention while the main human forces used stealth tactics to strike at critical points. The hope was to break their formation, disrupt their leadership, and force them into retreat before they could reach Erendor. The human fleet moved out, small but determined. Stars streaked past as they approached the outer rim, their sensors alert for any sign of enemy activity. Lyra stood on the bridge of her flagship, calm and focused. Each maneuver, each decision was made with precision, her mind a blend of instinct and strategy. Then the Zarkath appeared. Their ships were massive, sleek, and deadly. Energy beams hummed across the void, shields flaring as they prepared for engagement. The humans were outnumbered, yet Lyra's confidence did not waver. "Hold your positions," she commanded. "Wait for my signal. We strike on my mark." The initial clash was chaotic. Zarkath warships moved with deadly precision, firing relentlessly. Human ships dodged and weaved, returning fire where possible, but damage was mounting. Shields failed, engines faltered, and casualties rose. Yet Lyra's presence at the front gave the humans an unexpected edge. Seeing her in the thick of the fight inspired courage, a reminder that fear could be overcome with determination. Lyra maneuvered her ship closer to the heart of the enemy formation. Energy beams streaked past her, some narrowly missing, others colliding with nearby asteroids in violent explosions. Her sensors detected a massive Zarkath command ship at the center of the fleet. Its destruction could disrupt enemy coordination and turn the tide of battle. "We target the command ship," Lyra ordered. Her voice was steady, unshaken by the chaos around her. The pilots nodded, understanding the risk but trusting in her judgment. The attack required precision, speed, and coordination. As they advanced, Lyra noticed a familiar pattern in the enemy formation, rigid, confident, and predictable. The Zarkath assumed humans would fight cautiously, but their assumption was wrong. Lyra instructed half of the fleet to create diversions, weaving through enemy lines and drawing fire, while the other half, led by her, prepared for a concentrated strike. The diversion worked brilliantly. Zarkath fire focused on the decoys, leaving gaps in the central formation. Lyra seized the opportunity, guiding her strike craft directly toward the command ship. Every second was critical. Shields flared, engines burned, and crew members clung to their stations as the void erupted around them. Suddenly, a massive Zarkath cruiser broke from formation, moving to intercept Lyra. Its size and firepower dwarfed her ship, and for a moment, the odds seemed insurmountable. But Lyra relied on human ingenuity and instinct, weaving through debris and using gravity wells from nearby asteroids to her advantage. The cruiser fired relentlessly, yet her unpredictable maneuvers kept her alive. Then the unthinkable happened. A Zarkath fighter broke through the human defenses, aiming directly at her ship. Lyra acted instinctively, performing a series of complex maneuvers that even experienced pilots would hesitate to attempt. The fighter overshot, crashing into the wreckage of another enemy ship. Lyra's crew erupted in cheers, their morale lifted by her audacity. As they closed in on the command ship, Lyra detected a secondary target, an energy core that powered the ship's communication and coordination systems. Destroying it would disable the fleet's coordination, leaving them vulnerable. "Focus on the core," she ordered. "Hit it with everything we have." Missiles and energy beams struck the target, and the command ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared across Zarkath vessels as their fleet lost cohesion. Confusion rippled through the enemy lines, and the human fleet pressed the advantage. Ships that had been cornered now found openings, striking with precision and courage. Amid the chaos, Lyra's sensors picked up a massive signal, an enemy flagship, larger and more menacing than any ship she had encountered, moving toward her. The Zarkath Supreme Commander had arrived. Its presence radiated authority and danger, its energy weapons humming with lethal power. Lyra knew this confrontation would be decisive. She steeled herself. "This is it," she told her crew. "We cannot falter. Stay sharp, stay together, and trust in human courage." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of hope and determination. The Supreme Commander's ship advanced, its weapons firing with precision. Lyra's craft twisted and dodged, returning fire when possible. The battle became personal, a duel of strategy, skill, and courage. Each move she made forced the commander to adapt, each decision testing her ability to anticipate the enemy's reactions. For hours, the two forces clashed. The human fleet exploited every weakness, every gap in enemy defenses. Lyra's leadership inspired pilots to take bold actions, to risk everything in calculated moves that slowly chipped away at Zarkath's strength. Civilians watching from hidden locations on Erendor whispered prayers, sending their hopes into the stars, hoping their courage could reach the battle. Lyra realized the key to victory lay in exploiting the Supreme Commander's arrogance. The commander expected humans to fight conventionally, to rely on numbers and brute force. Lyra chose unpredictability, using the terrain, debris, and the human fleet's ingenuity to strike where least expected. She directed coordinated attacks on weak points, drawing enemy fire away from the main targets and creating openings for decisive strikes. Finally, the moment arrived. Lyra maneuvered her ship close to the Supreme Commander's flagship, dodging a barrage of energy beams. She fired a concentrated salvo at a critical system, and the enemy vessel shuddered violently. The energy core overloaded, sending shockwaves through the ship and disabling its weapons temporarily. The human fleet seized the opportunity. Every ship, battered and exhausted, struck with renewed vigor. Energy beams and missiles tore through the enemy lines, and the once cohesive Zarkath fleet began to fracture. Confusion and fear spread among their ranks, and ships started retreating. Lyra's heart raced. Victory was within reach, but she knew it came with a cost. Her ship had taken damage, engines flickering, shields failing, and hull breaches reported across multiple sections. Yet she pressed on, determined to see the battle to its conclusion. With a final, coordinated strike, the Zarkath flagship was crippled. Its weapons offline, its systems failing, and its fleet in disarray, the Supreme Commander had no choice but to retreat. The remaining Zarkath ships fled into the void, leaving humanity victorious, for now. Exhausted but exhilarated, Lyra guided her ship back toward the fleet. Pilots cheered, crew members embraced, and even those who had doubted found renewed courage in the wake of the battle. Humanity had won a decisive engagement against an overwhelmingly powerful enemy, and the morale of Erendor soared. Yet Lyra knew the fight was far from over. The Zarkath Empire remained vast, their resources immense, and their determination unbroken. But she also knew something that the enemy did not. Humans were resilient, unpredictable, and capable of extraordinary courage. As the fleet regrouped, Lyra looked at the stars, thinking of the countless worlds still under Zarkath control, of the innocents who awaited liberation, and of the battles yet to come. She understood that leadership was more than strategy. It was about inspiring others to believe in themselves, to rise above fear, and to fight even when the odds seemed impossible. And so, with the human fleet battered but victorious, Lyra prepared for the next challenge. The Supreme Commander would return, stronger and more determined, but humanity had proven something vital. Courage, unity, and ingenuity could defy even the most formidable enemy. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They were alive with possibility. And at the heart of it all stood Princess Lyra, a beacon of hope and defiance, ready to face whatever the universe dared to throw at her next. The galaxy was silent for a moment, but the silence was not peace. It was the pause between storms, the quiet before the next strike. Erendor's human fleet had survived, battered but victorious, and for the first time in years the people could breathe without immediate terror. Yet Lyra knew the Zarkath Empire would not forgive this humiliation. Their pride, their sense of invincibility, would drive them to return, stronger and more ruthless than before. Lyra stood on the bridge of her flagship, surveying the stars. Each flickering point of light reminded her of the countless worlds still under the Zarkath's iron grip. Civilians, soldiers, and scouts had all looked to her for guidance, and she had delivered hope when there had been none. But she also knew that victories were temporary unless humans learned to fight smarter together and without fear. Reports from scouts filtered in. Zarkath forces were regrouping in distant sectors, repairing ships and gathering reinforcements. Some humans in outer colonies were attempting to rise against the occupiers, inspired by the daring attacks led by Princess Lyra. The rebellion was growing, and the spark she had ignited was spreading across the stars. Lyra called a council of her commanders. "We have won a battle," she said, her voice steady, "but the war is not over. The Zarkath will return. They may strike again anywhere at any time. We must be ready to lead our people not only to fight but to survive." Jerk stepped forward. "Princess, we have an opportunity. These scattered uprisings can be coordinated. If we can unite the human colonies, we can create a defense strong enough to withstand the next strike and even push the Zarkath back." Lyra nodded. "We will do more than survive. We will show the galaxy that humanity is not weak. We will fight not just with weapons, but with courage, ingenuity, and unity. Every human who rises with us becomes a part of the story, a part of hope." Preparations began immediately. Messages were sent to hidden enclaves, encouraging them to prepare, to resist, and to believe in their strength. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged ships and fortify planetary defenses. Soldiers trained relentlessly, learning new tactics and mastering weapons salvaged from previous battles. Civilians contributed in every way they could, constructing shelters, organizing supplies, and tending to the wounded. Lyra moved among them not as a distant princess, but as a leader who shared in the struggle. She spoke to young pilots, inspiring them with tales of past heroes. She consulted with engineers, finding new ways to maximize their limited resources. She comforted the fearful, reminding them that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Then the Zarkath returned. Their fleet emerged from hyperspace near Erendor, vast and menacing, their warships bristling with energy weapons. Their presence filled the void like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. The humans were ready, but the odds remained daunting. Lyra's fleet, though larger and better prepared than before, was still outnumbered. Every ship, every pilot, and every piece of equipment would be tested to its limit. The battle began with a thunderous exchange of fire. Energy beams sliced through space, explosions rocked the void, and debris floated among the stars like deadly confetti. Lyra led the charge personally, her strike craft weaving through the enemy formation with skill and precision. She coordinated attacks, directed maneuvers, and inspired her fleet with her courage. Despite the ferocity of the Zarkath, humans fought with a determination the aliens could not predict. Lyra's fleet struck at critical points, disrupting communications, disabling weapons, and creating confusion. Pilots took daring risks, inspired by the knowledge that their princess led them from the front line. Every act of courage multiplied, every maneuver coordinated through Lyra's leadership. During the chaos, Lyra detected the Zarkath Supreme Commander herself, a monstrous presence within the fleet. The commander's flagship was heavily shielded, its energy weapons capable of destroying multiple human vessels in seconds. Lyra realized that defeating this ship would break the Zarkath morale and secure the battle. She prepared for a direct assault, knowing the danger. The human fleet supported her, drawing fire away from her strike craft and creating openings. Lyra navigated through asteroid fields, past debris, and through the wreckage of previous skirmishes, closing in on the Supreme Commander's ship. The commander fired relentlessly, energy beams tearing through the void, but Lyra's agility and tactics kept her alive. She launched a precise strike at the flagship's energy core, the heart of its power. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as its systems failed one by one. Lyra's crew watched in awe and fear, realizing that the battle's outcome hung on this moment. With one final coordinated attack, the core exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The Zarkath ships faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. The human fleet pressed the advantage, striking decisively. Ships that had been cornered found opportunities to strike, weapons fired with precision, and the tide of battle turned. The once feared Zarkath fleet now began to retreat, their formations broken, their morale shattered. On the battlefield, Lyra's courage had become a beacon. Pilots, soldiers, and even civilians watched her actions and drew strength from them. Her presence on the front line reminded everyone that hope was not just a word. It was a choice, a force that could change the course of events even against overwhelming odds. As the enemy retreated, Lyra's fleet regrouped. Casualties were heavy, and many ships required repairs, but the victory was complete. Humanity had not only survived, but had won a decisive engagement against a superior foe. Across Erendor and the nearby colonies, the news spread like wildfire. Human enclaves that had hidden in fear for years now emerged, ready to resist and fight. The rebellion was no longer isolated, it was becoming a movement. Lyra addressed the fleet and the people via a secure communication network. "Humans," she said, her voice calm and resolute, "today we have proven what we have always known. Courage, unity, and determination can overcome even the greatest challenges. We have faced a mighty enemy and shown that we do not yield. The fight is far from over, but hope has returned. Stand with us, and together we will ensure that humanity survives and thrives." Her words resonated across planets, colonies, and hidden enclaves. People who had given up found renewed purpose. Children who had never known safety now believed that a future was possible. Soldiers who had fought in despair now fought with pride and determination. Hope, fragile but unbroken, spread across the stars. Lyra knew that leadership required more than strategy, it required inspiration. She walked among her people, speaking to the wounded, encouraging the hesitant, and reminding everyone of what they had achieved. She did not claim credit for herself. Instead, she celebrated the courage of every human who had fought, survived, and inspired others to do the same. The Zarkath, shaken by the unexpected resilience of humanity, retreated beyond the outer rim. Their fleets were not destroyed, but their aura of invincibility was broken. Across the galaxy, whispers spread among alien observers. The humans had risen, and they could fight with courage, ingenuity, and determination unmatched by any other species. On Erendor, life slowly returned to the cities. Repairs began on buildings, infrastructure, and ships. Markets reopened, children played among the streets, and the sound of laughter returned, cautious but real. People no longer cowered in fear, they moved with purpose, with pride, with hope. Lyra watched it all with a quiet satisfaction. The path ahead was still dangerous, and many battles would come, but humanity had reclaimed a part of its destiny. One evening, Lyra stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city she had helped defend. Fires still burned in some areas, and the scars of battle were visible everywhere, but there was life. She clenched her fists, feeling the weight of her responsibility, and whispered a vow to the stars above. "We will not surrender. We will continue to fight, to survive, and to thrive. Humanity will not be broken. Hope will never fade." Across the galaxy, human colonies coordinated with one another, sharing resources, knowledge, and strategies. The rebellion was no longer a scattered effort. It was a united movement. Ships from distant worlds joined the fleet, engineers shared designs for weapons and defenses, and civilians contributed wherever they could. Humanity had learned the power of unity, and under Lyra's leadership, they were ready to face whatever challenges awaited. Lyra knew that the supreme commander of the Zarkath would return. They would strike again, seeking revenge and to reclaim lost pride. But humanity was no longer afraid. They had tasted victory, experienced courage, and understood that their strength lay not only in weapons, but in their determination to fight for survival and freedom. As she gazed at the stars, Lyra felt a sense of calm determination. The battle had been won, but the war continued. She was ready. Humanity was ready. And hope, once a faint ember, now burned brightly in every heart across the galaxy. For the first time in generations, humans knew that they could stand against the darkness. They could defy the mighty, survive the impossible, and inspire the universe with courage. Princess Lyra had led them to victory not just with strategy or skill, but with the undeniable force of hope. And so, with the stars shining above, the people of Erendor and beyond looked to the future with renewed courage. They knew challenges would come, but they also knew this. As long as humans stood together, led by courage and determination, hope would never be lost. The galaxy had seen the rise of humanity once more, and at its heart stood Princess Lyra, a symbol of resilience, bravery, and unyielding hope. Humanity would continue to fight, to survive, and to shine, proving to the universe that no matter how dark the shadow, the light of courage could never be extinguished. When the human princess took the front line, hope returned.